Hi, my name is Gordon Chambers, and I am a guest on the Nothing to Lose But Yourself podcast, hosted by Ricky Day.
My guest on the podcast today is singer, songwriter, producer, and recording artist Gordon Chambers. Gordon is most definitely a success story in the music industry. His solo albums have been nominated for Independent Soul Album of the Year by soultracks.com. His number one hits as a lyricist include Anita Baker's Grammy award-winning hit I Apologize, Brownstone's Grammy-nominated If You Love Me, Angie Stone's No More Rain in This Cloud, the Grammy-nominated theme of Set It Off, Missing You, which was performed by Brandy, Tamia, and Gladys Knight, and Chaka Khan. Of course, there's Yolanda Adams, Someone Watching Over Me, and the Isley Brothers' recent comeback smash, Just Here to Chill. He's written for, in fact, over 75 recording artists, man, including people like Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin and Beyonce and Brandy and Trey Songz and Usher, just to name a few. He's the winner of 8 ASCAP Songwriting Awards, 4 Dove nominations, and his songs have been performed places like the Essence Awards, the American Music Awards, and even the White House. He's also recorded 4 solo albums, introducing Gordon Chambers, Love Stories, Sincere, and his most recent release was Surrender. But I know you are tired of hearing me talk about the man. You'd rather hear from the man. So without further ado, why don't you guys welcome to the podcast, Mr. Gordon Chambers. How are you, Gordon?
I am very happy. It's a beautiful summer day and happy to be talking to you.
Great, man. It's good to see you. I'm happy to be talking to you as well. How have you been? I feel like we've seen each other more in the last 2 or 3 weeks than we have in the last 2 or 3 years. How
I
you been?
know. I'm good. I'm gratitude, I'm just really like happy to be alive post pandemic. Happy to, every day is a gift. Um, you know, there's been a lot of losses in the last 3 years. A lot of friends have crossed over. So I wake up every day and I just feel, no matter what's going on in the day, I just really feel very grateful to be here and on the earth and be making a difference in whatever way there that the day avails itself to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. And I share that sentiment. We were talking recording today
Yeah.
about that very thing, about the power of and the necessity for gratitude. And so I share that, man.
Right.
Where's your phone at right now? Where's your phone? Is your phone nearby?
Yeah.
All right. I want you to open your phone up, open up your MP3 player, and I want you to tell me, what is the last song that you listened to?
The last song in my iTunes, for instance.
Yeah.
Well, I did a vocal coaching session today with somebody. I do vocal coaching for singers,
Mhm.
and she was singing in her session "Spend My Life with You" by Eric Benet and
Ah.
Tamia. So that's what's literally in my phone right now, and that's what's in my phone right now for that particular reason.
Okay, I got you. What have you been listening to? What's in heavy rotation in Gordon Chambers' world today?
I don't listen to that much music. I listen to a lot of podcasts. But I listen to the radio. I'm old school. Like I listen to Jazz 88
Mhm.
um all the time. It's like New York's jazz radio station. Um I often have that playing. I'm trying to think like what's the last I mean, I would say I listened to Janelle Monáe's album the other day, like
Mhm.
a couple of times back and forth, and it's like it's really dope. It's really creative. It's really a movement, and it's creative and it's eclectic and it's beautiful. I went to this
Indeed.
Sylvester tribute 2 weeks ago in at
Lincoln Center.
Lincoln Center.
Mhm.
Jason King did this Sylvester tribute. It was with a full band and all, like maybe 10 singers. So I went on like a big Sylvester celebration listening where I listened to probably like, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70 songs by Sylvester. So sometimes I'm just like checking things out. I may go to a concert and then go back and listen to the music from that concert. I think I'm like a music like researcher kind of sort of. Like
Mhm.
I was listening to NPR, did a really great um, review of Janelle's album, and I said, "Oh, this is really good." And I was listening to like hear how she put it together and like why I thought it was good. So my listening is kind of like that these days for whatever reason, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's
Yeah.
anthropological on some level and it's
Yeah.
informative and educational as well. Yeah.
Trying to be like educational. And then people that I teach, actually, they sometimes turn me on to some great music, that
Mhm.
I've never heard, so I'm just like open organically to people telling me what I should check out, or going to shows of performances and seeing like new performers and checking their music out after the shows. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's an organic way to discover new music. I was
Hmm.
just curious. I'm always curious how professionals are discovering new things that are happening in their industry because it's easy to get burnt out. You're focused on writing your own project, so you don't want to listen to other things. But
I remember very vividly when I was like 20 or in my early 20s, and I sort of became good friends and a mentee of Phyllis Hyman. I used to ask her what she was listening to. She said, "I don't listen to music." And I was
Mhm.
like, "But Phyllis, you're a musician. Like, how could you not listen to music?" And I remember her expressly saying that she really didn't listen to that music. And it seemed very odd to me at the time. But now I get it. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes I just want like peace. I just want to like have like quiet or walk and hear birds sounds
Yeah.
or podcasts. I love podcasts. I love to learn. I love learning. And there's so I think when I listen to music, I want to listen to music that I think teaches me something.
Mhm.
And it could be new music or it could be classic music that I want to learn from it just for my own musicality, or I want to learn from it to see if there's something that I can teach with it from. So
Yeah.
my relationship with music has changed a bit, as I've matured.
I get that, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, people and I talk all the time about who we are at our core, right? And people
Right,
see that I move as an artist, they see that I'm a media personality and host this show, and so they think that's what I am. And I'm like, no, 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 those are the things I do, but
right,
at my core, I'm a
yeah,
teacher. And as a teacher, I'm always trying to learn things that I can
hmm
then reinterpret and share with others in ways that enrich their lives. So I'm fundamentally at
totally,
my core a teacher. And so to that
yeah.
end, who would you say you are at your core, Gordon? We know what you do, and we're going to dive into that in a second. But kind of who are you at your core as a person?
I
So
mean, I
who?
think a lot of me is a teacher, just like
Mhm.
you said, which is something I resisted. Like, I didn't think of myself as a teacher. I think in a lot of ways I'm a student. I think I'm always still trying to learn. But as I've grown older, you know, I've realized that people have always come to me for wisdom. I didn't realize that
Mhm.
that's what they were coming for. I really didn't. In
Mhm.
my younger years, I thought they were just coming because they just wanted to go to be a plus one and come to a party or something. You know what I mean? They just
I
wanted
get
to come to
but that's real too. But
a nice clean house and maybe eat or hang out. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I really have learned that it's wisdom that they've come that they've always come for.
Mhm.
And so as I've aged, I've learned to tap into that I have wisdom to share. I did not think of it that way. I didn't think of myself I didn't think of myself as dumb, but I didn't think of myself as wise in that way. Like I remember, like, in the hood, people say OG.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
OG. I used to think that meant you're old. I really did not get that. That's like guru. That's like sensei. That's like a man who's walked and lived and had some pains and life lessons. That's
Mhm.
and is willing to share. I had to embrace that God had that command or that calling on me to share in that way. So now it comes out just in conversations like this. It comes out just in interactions with friends and family socially, but it also comes in just stepping into education, and also just even when I perform now, I will talk like,
Yeah.
especially after 50, like I'm gonna do the songs, but I'm gonna talk about where
That's
the songs come from, what it means to me. I may ask what it means to you. I've realized that I have that to give, and it's a
Mhm.
blessing. It's a blessing to be able to not just be thought of as somebody with talent, but but to be thought of as somebody that has something to offer into other people's talent. You know what I mean? I do it because it was done for me. At a young
Mhm.
age, there were people, who made themselves available to me. Phyllis being one of them, but even younger than that, musicians in my community in Teaneck, New Jersey, where I was raised. Um, even in high school, in junior high, people who thought I was a protege, and music industry professionals who came to my house or let me go to their house and taught me, and really poured into me. So it's an honor to 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 live that way and go full circle. And when I do it, I honor the fact that it was done for me.
Yeah.
You know?
And paying it forward is important because
Absolutely.
you show the gratitude that you say you have. You show it by
Mhm.
paying it forward to others. And
Indeed.
it's also important and great to have that faith and to understand that you have the tools to
Hmm.
be able to teach. And I get it, man, when you talk about not recognizing or seeing yourself as wise enough to be a teacher, you also touched on it at the same time, in that same breath, the humility that's involved, right? That you're
Hmm.
always constantly learning. You're always a student
Yes.
yourself. And I think the best teachers are students. The best
Absolutely.
teachers are people who are always continuing to learn and to grow and to
Yeah.
be open to new ways
Yep.
of expressing and exploring and understanding things.
Hmm.
Yeah, no,
Beautiful. It's beautiful to have that openness and that inquisitiveness, in your life.
absolutely.
That's what being alive, the joy of life is to me, the real essence and joy of life is being
Absolutely.
curious. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's fascinating to me how you can know people casually or socially for so long and not realize how much you have in common. Like this is the first time we've had this kind of
Right.
conversation. We realize how much we have in common. And I
Yep.
think it's also, interesting because of what our gifts are. Our gifts will make room for us, right?
Right.
But our gifts also draw the kinds of people to us that can
Hmm.
benefit most from our gifts and vice versa. And
Hmm.
so you see people like you and I, and we never became like the close friends that hang out every week or whatever. But as we talk more, I'm realizing we have so much in common.
Right.
But one of the reasons
And
why we
always,
may not have been drawn to each other because we're doing the same work in different
right.
areas. And
And I think there's people that you see each other, like you may not have had the opportunity to spend that much time, but I've always seen you and I've always had a lot of respect for you. Like
absolutely,
it's
same
like
for you.
I've always seen you. So it's like, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and same thing. I've seen you, and I respect you, and
Right.
inspired, quite honestly, by you.
Thank
So
you.
it's good to see, man.
Thank
So
you.
before we dive into the music, you're welcome. Before we dive into the music, I want to just give people a little background about who you are, where you're from. You mentioned growing up in Teaneck, New Jersey. Tell us a little bit about that foundation that was set for you as a young man in this world.
I was born in the Bronx, actually in the heavily Jamaican enclave of the Northeast part of the Bronx, Given Avenue, Boston Road, Tiemann Avenue, Eli Avenue. That was like the little, quadrant that I was born in. My parents wanted to move to Teaneck, which was not that far from the city,
Hmm.
for better public school systems, to move from an apartment to a house. So I come from striving immigrant people. My parents migrated from Jamaica in the late 60s, and
Hmm.
they were dreamers, strivers. The culture was very strong. My parents speak with their full accents. They cook fully Jamaican food. So it was, I had aunts and uncles and grandparents that came to visit all the time, or we would visit them either in Canada or Jamaica, or England. So my world, no matter where I was living, that was the culture, that was the base.
Hmm.
Um, but Teaneck, New Jersey is not far from here. Teaneck was a town, or is a town still, but especially then, that made pursuing entertainment feel very tangible,
Hmm.
because like some of my neighbors were Millie Jackson, Kool and the Gang, Brooke Shields, you know, r- a lot of jazz musicians,
Wow.
professional jazz musicians. These people who lived in Teaneck. Muhammad Ali had a daughter, uh, one of his kids, his children's mothers lived in Teaneck. So
Mhm.
people lived in Teaneck. It was not far from the city. It had good school systems. They moved there so I would see entertainers throwing out their garbage, and so I delivered papers to them. They seemed no different than my parents. They
Mhm.
seemed no different than me. I didn't think they were any better than me ever. So it put in me this dream that I could pursue the same careers that they were pursuing,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any fear, maybe nervousness, but not fear of being around entertainers because I saw them growing up.
Yeah, it's
So
normal.
that was my childhood. It was there. I graduated. I skipped a grade. So I graduated young. I graduated when I was 16. Then I went to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, which was a very artsy college. Ivy League, serious about its academics, but also very artsy. Some of my classmates were Rhonda Ross, Dinah's daughter,
Mhm.
JFK Jr. He was a little bit older than me, but he used to come to campus quite often. Craig Coleman of Atlantic Records. So these were, students that were either, you know, on campus with me or a little bit older, but still coming to campus for certain things. So
Mhm.
also that trajectory of just like networking, continued into college with people, in entertainment.
Yeah.
Then after that, got out of college at age 20. Actually, I was 20 when I graduated, and took a job at Essence as first an editorial assistant, but then got promoted to entertainment editor and served there for 4.5 years. And it was there while I was there and sort of moonlighting what my songwriting career, started to kick off, professionally. But I had always written songs as a child. I
Mhm.
played the trumpet, I played the piano, and I always wrote songs. I didn't really start singing much until college, but I was always writing songs, always doing demos, always kind of just trying to lay my little tracks down in whatever humble way I could. But it was while I was still at Essence where I started meeting like producers like Dave Hall, Sean, when we called him Sean, the early Sean who became
Yeah.
Diddy, but in the early days, um, Barry Eastman, amazing, legendary producer. I started sort of like things started just sort of networking, meeting one person, meeting another and another, getting a little bit more closer to the actual, um, you know, people who were really could make it happen and get your lyrics actually on a record, get you in the studio with somebody, and
Mhm.
it you get sort of just the dream became felt start to get closer. And it was while I was at Essence, in 92, 93, that the first songs that I started having were on the radio. And then finally in 1997, Susan and I, my big boss at the time, just had a conversation and it was said it's time to go, and left in 97 to just do music full time. And, that's been that ever since. It's actually my 30th. This year is my 30th anniversary
My
of like
goodness.
having, album, like songs on records. It's like
Mhm.
30 years of being
The first
liner
songwriter.
notable,
Yeah.
so to speak. So yeah.
Congratulations. That's quite
Thank
the
you.
that's an achievement, brother. That's an
Thank you.
achievement.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now I know you from the social scene, but I don't want to speak for you and make any declarations about who you are. How do you identify in terms of gender and sexuality and those kinds of things?
I am Gordon Chambers. I'm a child of God. You know what I mean? Like I really I'm living my life. I don't know how. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't know how I'm supposed to identify. I don't know how. I think
As just as you said,
identifications.
as you are, I ask
You
because
know.
you've always moved with this freedom, right? You always
Right.
walk into a room owning it and owning yourself and owning your place and your presence in it, right? And I was just curious and leading towards this question about, when did you really kind of understand and embrace all of who Gordon Chambers is in this world, and how important was that? Was that something that was pushed on you and put into you by your family as a young man, or you just kind of discovered, as so many do, along the way? This is what I stand for. This is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And this is who I am, world.
Thank you for that question. Thank you that acknowledgement. It's interesting. Like I went on vacation in Italy the other day with some
Mhm.
friends, and somebody said the same thing to me. They were like, Gordon, you are like when you're in the room, we like you have a presence. Like you just like we know you're just in the room. I'm like, when people say that to me, I don't really. It's hard. I don't think of myself that way. I just think I'm just trying to like live my life and get from point A to point B and just do it, pay my bills and try to like please God and go to bed and do it again the next day. Like I don't think of myself that way, but I would say this. I would say that to whom much is given, much is required, I guess.
Hmm.
Family. I'm the eldest son of one of two sons. I have a younger brother, but I was also the eldest grandchild of 17 grandkids. My mother's side, seven of those kids, four sisters' kids lived in Teaneck, so I was very much a first and an eldest. So I was always very aware that others were watching me. And
Mm.
so I think that what you may see as confidence, which I don't always see myself that way. I am aware, and I've always been aware that others were watching me, that I was setting an example, and that I had to walk with my head held high.
Mm.
Um, you know, it was just always that way. I mean, even as a child, I was 7 years old, and the teachers called my parents and said, your child is very bright. We think he should skip a grade. I remember my parents called me into this meeting at the school, and they asked me. I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, you're the parents. But they're like, it's really up to you. It's like, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
And so the teachers was like, we're happy to advance you. However, if we advance you, there could be other kids that may be jealous of you and, quote unquote hateration, before
Right.
we call it that, just be aware that that could happen. And I was like, if my parents think that I can do this, can handle this, if the teachers think that this is what I should do, then let's just figure it out, And so
That's wild. That's a lot to put on a child to decide, though.
they put it on me. Like, daddy asked me and I was a child, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But so it's always been, I remember another time when I was graduating college, my mother called me. She said, Gordon, we have an issue. I said, what is it? She said, Mama called me. That's grandma. She
Mhm.
said "T- that all of the cousins need to come to your graduation. I said, Mommy, they only give us like 5 or 6 tickets. She said, I don't know, but this is what
Mama
grandma
said.
called, and she did not ask. She told me to tell you. And she called all the aunts and all the uncles who lived on this coast, and they made their plans. And I said, but what are we going to do? I mean, it was like, I said, Mommy, they're only going to give us this many tickets. She said, I don't know. We'll stand, but everybody's coming. And grandma organized this. And so luckily, this friend Tatiana von Furstenberg, actually, she's literally a von
Von
Furstenberg,
Furstenberg. Wow.
literally. She was having this graduation party. She had invited me to invite my family. I said, Tatiana, I'm going to have to decline because I'm going to have a larger party family
Mhm.
than. I said, well, she said, just bring everybody. I said, no, it's about 20 people. She said, bring them. So her family had rented out this whole restaurant, and all of us came. So, it was just kind of that way. Like, I was always aware that people were watching um, my town, and not just in the family, not just family, but my town
Mhm.
was expecting me to shine. And so I've always tried to live my life in a way that other people could draw on and find empowerment from.
Mhm.
Um, so no matter what I've ever tried to do, it's been very important to me to live with some dignity and live with some purpose, and so that I can be of empowerment. It's always been that way since I was a child. I lived that way, and that's a burden too. That's not always an easy
I was going to say,
place.
I've been encouraged to live the same way for very similar reasons.
Yes,
Oldest, first, all the things. But that
yes.
is absolutely a burden. I was going to ask you, man, how have you shouldered that burden? And when has that shown up in your life as a burden? Because indeed it can be.
I mean, it's a burden. I mean, it's still a burden. But it's an honor, to be thought of, to lead, to be thought. of highly enough, incredibly enough to lead.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll say this: there's been times in my life when I've been really not in the greatest of spirits. Um, Times when I was down, for different battles and things that I've, faced. When people have come up to me and let me know the example that unbeknownst to me that I was making to other people. This house where I live had a major fire in 2016, and it was a major fire. I mean, hundreds and
Remember?
hundreds of people were in the street watching this house burn in fear that, the whole block might have, you know, lit, might have spread.
Hmm.
And I remember, a couple of months after the fire, I went to work out in the park, just, doing the stairs, the Fort Greene Park stairs. It's like a good cardio. And this woman came up to me. She said, "Are you Brother Gordon?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "I just want to tell you something." She said, "I was there that night." And the minute she said that, I knew exactly what she was talking about. I knew.
Hmm.
She said, "I've seen you, but I wanted to approach you, but I didn't want to wait till the right moment." She said, "I was there that night with my two sons. And she said, we've always been praying for you, and we've been very concerned about you." She said, "And I see you sometimes in the neighborhood, and I tell him," she said, "Look at him. Look at how he's walking down the street doing what he's got to do. Look at him." And she said, "I want to thank you because you have been an example to my sons as how to live with whatever life puts on you, whatever you
Hmm.
find yourself in, with with some pride and some dignity." And I just want to let you know that I encourage you, and that the impact. I held that woman and just hugged her and cried in her arms. I
Yeah.
had no idea. I mean, who would have thought this woman that I never even saw? And she said, "I'm a single mother raising two teenage sons.
Hmm.
I've never met the sons. I had no idea. How could I have had an idea?
You
You
couldn't
know,
have an idea because you were busy living your life, loving yourself, being who you were made to be,
right?
and doing it how you were made to do it.
You
But
know,
that's the whole point, man, of why we do this podcast,
hmm
because people like you walking through the world, owning who you are, loving who you are, showing up as who you are,
mm,
sets the kind of example that empowers other people, number one. Number
mm,
two, you're so focused on living your own life and being grateful and being joyful that you don't have that impetus to make yourself feel better about self by diminishing or harming somebody else or being
right?
too invested in. Yes, you won awards and that's great, but the awards aren't who you are.
No,
Yes, you're a creative artist, but that's not at the core of who you are. Who at the core of who you are is a teacher, somebody
mm,
who inspires other people, somebody who pours into other people. And you're always going to be blessed because you're being who you were made to be. And blessed doesn't mean you won't have life's up and downs,
no,
but it does mean that you have a mechanism deep inside you that can help you
mm,
to weather the storms, that can help
hmm
you to walk with your head held high, but at the same time be humble enough, even in the most amazing times, to know that you're a human being like others and
yeah.
that there's others you need to pour into. That, man, is an example of how to live life. And I mean, that's why you're an ideal guest. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while and on the
Thank you
show
very much.
and share that with people.
Thank you very, very, very much. I mean, thank you for thinking enough of me to to do this and to spend time and with thinking that this conversation could be a blessing to somebody else. And that's why we live.
Yeah, that's why we live, and that's why we've been blessed, so that we can continue to grow and to be a blessing to
And when you've
others.
been blessed, it's like heaven, so you pass it on.
It makes me think too, about knowing and loving your authentic self. Right? It's got to be an asset when you're writing songs and expressing the human condition. Tell me, was there a time that your artistry got better as a direct result of your evolution as a human being? What was going on in your life as a human being?
um I hope so. I mean, I am one of those artists that has worked through a lot of chaos or turbulence. Sometimes songwriting was a source of healing, trying to work out, um, you know, painful situation, pain,
Hmm.
heartache, healing. Sometimes the songs were really written from deeply personal experiences, but I just was unafraid to feel those feelings, and give storyline to those feelings in a way that I thought that if I'm experiencing this as a human being, you know, then other human beings are experiencing this too. I think that being an artist has been a life of a certain amount of emotional connectedness and transparency,
Hmm.
and you can't be afraid to feel. You know, you have to sort of keep it real so you can deal and feel and heal. You know,
Yeah.
I think that is that courageous. One could argue, yes. Does it always feel courageous? Sometimes no.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's people, who I very much admire or envy, whatever you want to call it, their ability to compartmentalize and just not feel or just tuck their feelings out. I've never been one of those people. Um, so I think that like that's um, where a lot of my creativity has come from. It's given my work, I think, a certain amount of depth um, as a storyteller, and an empathy for other um, artists, and appreciation for other artists' work. It's given me sort of a lens, a portal to see and feel things
Yeah.
through, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And it's probably one of the reasons why you don't compartmentalize well, because you've got another gift that allows you to process
Right.
and work through those emotions. And I mean, speaking of songwriting, let's just get into it, man. You've written hit songs, including "I Apologize" for Anita Baker, "If You Love Me" by Brownstone. You won Grammys. You recorded 4 solo albums. You worked with Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin, who you were able to call friends at some point. I mean, congrats, brother. It's been an
Thank you.
amazing run so far, and you're not stopping anytime soon. Did you ever stop to think, why me, God? Or
All
was
the
the thought,
time.
okay, I was gonna ask,
All
or
the
was the thought
time.
more, were you thinking about it ahead of time, or is this kind of stuff that's unfolded naturally
I
for
mean,
you?
I was envisioning it and imagining it, definitely, seeing people on TV and being like, oh, if I ever get my chance, I'm going to, give it my best, give it my
Yeah.
best shot. Just sort of imagining getting to know, say, I want to be in the room with this person or, work with this person. So I'm definitely, dreams have absolutely come true. And I did envision or visualize, some of these things that have had a chance come true, and I'm grateful for that. Very grateful.
Was the original vision?
However, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
No, however, I will say this. I will also say that I came from a town where there were a lot of really talented people.
Mhm.
Um, People I thought far more talented than me. Um, it just, the cookie sort of crumbled in a way that opportunities came my way. And so I've always tried to sort of represent for the town, for the community, for my neighborhood, and was always very aware, still aware, that there was a town rooting for me and watching me. And so I've always sort of to try to make opportunities that come my way, take advantage of them, and really do things that I think that were going to make my people proud. I've also lost friends at a very young age.
Mhm.
Childhood friends passed, crossed over. 3 of my closest childhood friends from high school passed away. One at 16, um, another at both, the other 2 were in their early 20s. And these were 3 of my closest friends from high school. So it was very tragic and traumatic,
Mhm.
how they passed away. One was murdered. Um, just losing, people I was close to at a young age, but it also put the fire in me to live and try to manifest,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To live
Yeah.
fully. That's unfortunately a experience for so many of us. I lost a lot of friends early. I think we
Yeah.
become equated with death far sooner than most human
Yeah.
beings should. That's
Yeah.
been our plight as African Americans in
Yeah.
this country for a multitude of reasons.
Hmm.
But it's tragic sometimes.
Hmm.
You shared that you started writing while you were still working at Essence. Do you recall? I'm sure you do. What was the first song you got placed? What was the first song?
The first song I got placed was this group. They were on what's they were a group. They did not sell many records at all. But I remember this guy was writing and producing stuff with named John Alexander. He went by Funk. That was like his producer name. Like he
Mm-hmm.
sold this track that we worked on to this group called Sweet and Low. I think they were on Atlantic Records. I don't know whatever became of them. And then we sold another track to this group that did a slightly more traction, but didn't really do that well, named Terry and Monica.
Mm-hmm.
And they were on Epic. So those were two of my earliest placements, like in '93. But that's what but I was great. But they were real, actual recording sessions. It was a real, actual check I got in the mail. Like
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting some very early background singing work. I sang on this LaToya Jackson album in like 1992, but it's just like I got a check. It was a real recording session. It was a real producer. It was a real album credit. So that was like sort of
And it was
early
real
early
vocals
90s.
and real
Yeah.
vocals apparently.
So then, but it was like 93 going into 94 that I started to work with Dave Hall and Barry Eastman and Puffy's camp, that I actually started to get on the first like projects that went gold, and Queen Latifah, the song Winky's theme, like that was the first, like 93 94 was the transition into the projects that were better known artists, and some of the first gold records and platinum albums that I worked on, and Grammy nominated recording. So that was some of the earlier years, and all of that was while I was working at Essence. I was working at Essence in the daytime, and hitting the studios up at night, on the weekends. Sometimes going to A&R meetings during lunchtime to pitch songs. Calls were coming at my office from Sylvia Rohn and L.A. Reid, and like calling to do absolutely nothing to do with my day job.
Right.
So it was a very busy time. It was a busy time. It was a chaotic time too. Like I was very busy. I mean, I totaled a car, burning the candles at both ends, fell asleep driving.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of personal chaos, you know, at the same time, as
We do what we
as
got to do, though. We got to do. We do what
yeah,
we got
like
to do.
it was a very busy time, and it was a very busy time at the magazine. Working at the magazine, I was the entertainment editor. I had a real job and real, part of an editorial team, and a part of all those major decisions of all the cover stories and the Essence Awards and the first Essence Music Festival. Like very busy, those 5 years, 92 to 97. It was unsustainable.
Clearly.
I probably would have killed myself, literally. And then finally, my boss was like, "Listen, we could have you here forever, because you do great work here. But we believe that it's time for you to fly. Time for you to go out there on your own and do your own thing. And we also believe that the assistant that you've hired you've chose her well, and that you can actually mentor her to and groom her into taking over your position.
Mhm.
And it was a hard meeting to have, because I'm like, what the hell, are y'all firing me? Like, what is this? Like, but it was actually liberation,
It was.
and it was actually compassion and liberation and empowerment. and empowerment on many ways, because it was actually empowering me to train somebody else to lead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Yvette did get promoted into my position and did the job and many people told me after I left, they said, Gordon, you know, Yvette continued to run that department in the same spirit in which you did it. You know, you did. And Yvette and I are still very close friends to this day, still work on stuff together. You know, in the nonprofit sector, nonprofit space, we're still very close friends. So it was, you know, growth. It was a lot of,
Yeah.
it was a lot going on, a lot of good, a lot of madness, all at the same time. You know,
Is that
but I had a
compassion?
lot of good friends that were very supportive, and I had some fake friends too
Well, we all have.
that had to go. You know,
They out there
I,
sneaking love. Fake
you
friends.
know, I had it all. You know, I had the good, the bad, the ugly, the fake, the real.
Yeah.
It was just a time of growth, change. But I would say this: by the time I left Essence in 1997, I felt very, even though I was scared to leave and a bit nervous to go out on my own, you know, and declare myself a full time musician in the world. At that time, I was making more money from music than I was making at the magazine, but I was still afraid. Like,
Mhm.
you know, like how am I going to get car insurance, and who's going to still take my calls, and will I be invited to this and that? You know, the networking that
Right.
was associated with having that brand behind your name was very powerful. But it was like by the time I left, you know, as nervous as I was, I had learned so much from working at that Black company, coming at 20 years old, walking into those doors, you know, of that Black owned company. And I had learned so much about integrity, about teamwork, leadership. Um, you know, I learned that Black people can do business together. Like
Mhm.
we can actually do great work together. We can celebrate each other. I had learned that, and I left with that, and then took those values into into the life that I lead today.
Yeah, and they serve you well. And that was a compassionate kick in the ass that Susan and the team gave you, as only Black women can. On one
You
hand, they were very
know,
loving and very kind. On the other hand, it was like, Negro, you're not getting what needs to get done here anymore. The way we need you to focus on it. So,
right? It was more like, you know, it was not. There was not a complaint. It was
mhm.
like there was not a problem with my work.
Okay.
They were very clear. They're like, your work here is great. However, you're showing up like this is not where you want to be. And
Yeah.
there are other people who want this to be their goal,
There
you
you
know,
go.
that be
Mhm.
their end game. So by you being there, you're taking space from somebody else who may really want to be here as their career. And they were not wrong. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Mhm.
They were not wrong. And they said, when you go, we will be supportive of you. And they were. You know, they wrote about me several times in the magazine. Um, I wrote some stories for the magazine after I left. I did some consulting, you know, for the magazine. I performed at the Essence Music Festival. As a brand, when Gordon Chambers became a brand, they absolutely were true to their word and supported me. And I stayed active as, you know, with friends I made there. You know, I just was interviewed for the Essence. There's going to be a Essence documentary that's coming out in July that I was just a part of, and went back down memory lane. Susan Taylor and I are very good friends. We vacationed together. We were just in Italy together in May, you know, for another fellow friend's birthday celebrations, Reggie Van Lee.
I was
So
gonna
it
say,
was
was
a
there much?
beautiful and
Yeah.
pivotal, you know, time of empowerment, you know, empowerment for my life, you know.
How is
Yes,
the Queen? How is Miss Taylor doing?
she's good. She's doing fine. She's, you know, runs her nonprofit, and really showed up for me. I think the biggest, greatest takeaway I got from Susan working at Essence was really and truly like the power of mentoring. Like, you know, she runs a mentoring organization, but she was a mentor even before she started that organization while she was Essence. Absolutely was mentoring many people and encouraged me to mentor, people both within the office and then just, outside in life in general, taking young people under my wing, younger people under my wing who
Mhm.
want to aspire to do the things, that I do,
I'm
So she
so
made a
glad.
huge impact on me in that regard.
I'm so glad you bring that up because I mean she's amazing and an icon for so many reasons. And Essence is an amazing brand, and what she's done for Black women is really unmatched. But I think one of the things that about her that's amazing that people overlook is what you just talked about, that mentorship piece. Because so many people who create a brand, create an organization, have that thing we call founders syndrome, where they can't imagine letting go, they can't imagine
Hmm.
stepping aside, they can't imagine training their replacement and picking successors. And everybody who I know who's worked with her, and there's quite a few people from Emile and Will Begin on down, they all speak very highly of her and the kinds of things that she's done in her
Hmm.
life and career and how she mentored folks. So that is really great to hear.
Hmm.
And that's love. It's love. That
Hmm.
love that she says she has for our people is real. That love she
Oh,
has
very
for the
real.
brand is real. Uh,
Very, 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 very real. It has always been real, and it will be, forever till the day she dies. She takes the empowerment of Black people very seriously. Yeah.
The podcast, the theme for this season is for love and
Hmm.
Blackness. The for love part comes from a quote that I got from Bell Hooks about what love is defined as, and it was a quote from M. Scott Peck, actually. And for Blackness, because I think anti-Blackness is one of the things that's destroying the world and is certainly
Hmm.
verging on and destroying our people in many ways. But I
Yep.
think instead of talking about and just naming anti-Blackness, it's really about celebrating and uplifting and
Right.
embracing our Blackness is what we really
Yeah.
need to do. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, the Black Power movement in the 70s, all those things are examples on how we can really move forward in positivity and love. And to that end, man, I think we're pretty close in age. We're contemporaries. And we come from a time period, man, when Black music was nurturing and Black music was
Hmm.
loving. And it was the sound of revolution and the soundtrack of
Absolutely.
liberation
Yeah.
and Black love. And now, not so much. Without sounding like cranky old man, I want to unpack from your point of view, what do you think may have happened to change this space that people are creating from? And there seems to be so little love and so little pride and compassion and empathy for our people in our music, and it seems materialistic and capitalist driven. A, do you agree with that? And B, what do you think kind of shifted? Where did that shift happen?
um. hmm, that's a deep one. That's a big one. I think a lot of the music that's being made today is, I think a lot in my era. I grew up in the band. You
Mhm.
know, I was always in a band, so we grew up. Bands are families. They can be dysfunctional, but you have each other's back. Once you get up to that stage to play what you're playing, you still have each other's back. Like a family.
Yeah.
And it's real relationships. There's love. Sometimes even if you can't stand each other, you both have a love for what you're doing together, a love of music that you're trying to align with to give people that experience.
Mhm.
So I think that something really shifted where you had people from a certain generation who came out of that culture, out of being in the band, playing live instruments, to technology and making music more, in their rooms soloistically. And so I think when the music making shifted,
Mhm.
it became more about discovery of self. Like, literally people in a room with a computer trying to figure out who they are. Latchkey kids in a way, like making
Yes.
music, trying to really discover their own, identity. I mean, some of this music today, if you really sit down and really listen to it,
Mhm.
like some of it's really deep. Like some of it's painful,
Mhm.
but like I had to take a deep dive and listen to SZA's album not so long ago, and I'm like, this chick is deep. She's telling some deep stories about identity and just trying to like figure out like who she kind of like is in this
Yeah.
world, and like you know, and
It's an
I
amazing thing
think
to do, but
I think like she's indicative of an artist that's like taking a deep look within, but the music does sound a bit detached.
mhm,
It doesn't today's a lot of music doesn't sound as organic or as warm. It has a sound of detachment.
yeah,
But I think that this generation may feel detached. They may feel detached from each other, or I think music is reflecting the times. I think people are reflecting what they're inquiring into. I mean, I don't think as much of the music sounds as celebratory, you know what I'm saying. It's
celebratory.
more
Yeah,
identity, it's more self discovery. But then every once in a while a project comes out like Renaissance, which sounds like a party, which sounds like something that people can, I mean, even that little viral dance that went out, you saw all kinds
yeah,
of ages, races, dances, people. I remember like it went viral with a bunch of nurses at a hospital all doing the little dance. Like every once in a while something will come out that will bring people together. Every once in a while, but a lot of music sounds a little bit detached. It sounds like diary entries. It doesn't as much sound like music that you can put on. I remember growing up where my parents had entertained all the time. People were always at our house. I mean, my friends, my
mhm,
brother's friends as kids, my parents' friends, and nobody called. You just rang the doorbell. Is such and such home? Is there any food? The doors were just, nobody called to say they were coming. They
right.
just came.
Just pull up.
And we ate, we laughed, and we played music. We played music in that basement, all kinds of music, from
Mhm,
hip hop to disco to Donna Summer to Evelyn Champagne King to reggae to soul music to Motown. I mean, all kinds of music was played in that basement, and everybody could, every generations could enjoy the music that was played together. You don't have as much of that. The music feels very much more sonically like the sound of a detached generation.
yeah, it's tough. I asked that question, man, because, and I know the way I phrased it probably came off like I was another one, this cranky old man hating on
Hmm.
young folks, and that's actually the opposite of the truth for me. I love music, and I still listen to as much new stuff as possible. But I've definitely
Hmm.
noticed the trend, right? I've noticed the things being so
Sure.
insular and people being. I'm like, I mean, I
Yeah.
listen to the radio sometimes, or I listen to Apple Music on or Spotify on
Yeah.
some random play, and I'm
Hmm.
like, Jesus, these kids need therapy. What the hell is going on? And I think they really are reflecting the world that
Yeah.
we meaning our
Well, they are,
generation,
and
we
their music is their therapy. Like their music is their therapy sessions.
hmm
You know what I mean? Like literally, their songs are their therapy, their diary entries.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it's as opposed to like, let me make a song that can help somebody else heal. Mm-mm. It's like I'm making this song because this is my
Yeah, this is my
healing.
healing. This is my working this out.
Right.
And I think love, it just feels like love is dead. There was a love ethic, as African Americans, as Black people in this country, we've had it tough from day one and
Hmm.
continue to. And we've made advances, we've made strides. Things are definitely better than they might have been in the 30s
Hmm.
and the 40s. I'm clear. I'm certainly better than slavery. But it still sucks. And we all know it. And uh, the one thing that kept us going, though, there was like this love ethic, this deep, pervasive love ethic. We may have been impoverished, but we took pride in our neighborhoods. We may have had tough times, but the family kind of found a way to come together and to rally
Hmm.
around each other. And sometimes there was dysfunction going on that was unnoticed and
Hmm.
unspoken about. But generally speaking, there was some desire to love and to be there for each other. And I think the other thing that kind of shifted is capitalism has become the bigger
Totally.
for people, and
Yeah.
people are worried about being stars and making money and escaping more than they're worried about creating art that's going to make them feel good and make
Yeah.
money. and help them to escape. And that seems to be missing. And that's why I asked that, because I was just interesting from where you sit, how have you seen things changed, and what do you think, that shift is about? The other thing, Gordon, that is great in having a podcast like this, I can not only unpack, the power of being authentic and loving yourself and all those things, but we can also teach folks. And there's a lot of young creatives of color that listen to the show. We know that from our DMs and such. And so I use it as a teaching platform as well, right? And everybody loves music. We all love it. We all know what songs we like and why, what songs we don't and why. But I don't think people know as much about music as they think they do. Mm-hmm. And where I'm going with that is I want to unpack for folks to understand a little bit about the business of music. Now, the music business is big. It's a little complex. We're not going to go into the whole business. But from where you sit as a songwriter, give people a little bit of perspective, man, about how you earn a living from creating this wonderful song that we all hum and sing. And I think it's important because I want people to understand the value of music and creativity and how we can help artists and songwriters and producers and how we may be harming them in the decisions that we make as it relates to the marketplace. So just unpack it with, explain to everybody.
Well, I'll say this. I will say that writing songs is like creating an intellectual piece of property. It's like creating a mutual fund. It's creating something that has the potentiality to earn for generations. So, if the songs, make an impact and get streams or, plays or, into films or into, television shows, sync licenses and all of the, those opportunities, it continues to pay you and can do so for the rest of your life. So I say to people, when you're making music, make it classic. You may not understand the value of it until way later on, but if it's classic, it's going to continue to touch people or to inspire people. You could get, sampled. I've had songs be sampled, to my complete shock and surprise, by young rappers who I thought would never have, been into that kind of music. So I think that, the timelessness of your work as a songwriter is going to help ensure it, for generations, to come, as it matures and as it ages, it has more of a chance of becoming classic and then, continuing to be played on different radio formats or, different usages. And then that's what lets it live on, financially, but also just culturally,
Mm-hmm. And would you say, Gordon,
and just to connect this question to the question you were, talking about earlier before this question, is I think a lot of, today's music makers want to be extra, extra trendy and, and extra hip and fly. But, it's, if you really study who's really the top of the game, it's the Billie Eilishes and the Taylor Swifts and the Adeles who still know how to, make copyrights. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're writing things that aren't necessarily using all the slang of the moment, so they have this timelessness to the songs you're creating. That's where I was going to go with the follow-up.
And even if you look at Beyonce, who's a little bit more, experimental, she's gotten less and less traditional in her music making. But even if you look at Beyonce's as she's gotten increasingly experimental, on her projects, the song that seems the most adult is the one that always lasts the longest. Mm-hmm. Like, with this album, the one that we're gonna look out tonight, that Nile Rodgers is, a co-writer on, that sounds the most old school, mm-hmm. Love on Top.
Yep.
That feels the most old school. No matter how funky and, crunked up and fly she gets, those songs that feel a little bit more classic are the ones from her projects that always live on the longest.
Yeah.
That feel more timeless.
That's absolutely
irreplaceable. you know?
Irreplaceable. Yeah, all of
Yeah,
those songs are those are the timeless ones. That's a part of the
yeah.
catalog that's going to be played for years for sure.
Yep.
How has the business side of music kind of changed with technology? I mean, on one hand, I would think with all these new content platforms, there's all kinds of places where music lives and songwriters can get paid. What are other ways have technology and the times we live in have they evolved the business side of music from where you
I
sit?
mean, now, I mean, the playing field has been, totally flattened and evened. I mean, in my day, the goal everybody wanted to do was like write a song for a big artist and like get a song to, whoever. And that was the goal. The goal has changed. A lot of people, that's not even their goal anymore. A lot of people are making music and creating a movement and, wanting to go, create content or go viral or create branding opportunities and tour, for merchandising or, leverage their celebrity or their cachet, their fame, whatever you want to call it, from one opportunity to another platform, So it's about making movements now, not just music, but if you're a music maker, making a movement,
Hmm.
making a brand. It's very much about that. It used to be like I just wanted to write a dope song. Or I just wanted to sing a great song if you were a singer, but now it's more about like how can I make my what I'm doing a conversation piece? How can it, you know, create multiple streams of income or awareness for me? That's a big shift. And everybody can. The playing field is open. Anybody can put their music out. But the like a lot of today's music makers, they're not as interested or wedded to the album format. They do
Yeah.
EPs or they do singles and just to kind of keep themselves in as conversation pieces and as opposed to the whole grand full album and then years you wait and then the next one. Somebody told me today that Erica Badu has an album coming out in 2 weeks. I had no idea.
And she does, and she's touring as well.
Did you hear that she had a new album coming out?
And she's
I
touring.
didn't hear. Yeah, I didn't know that. Good for her.
Grandmama's gonna do her thing until she's a grandma and a great grandma.
Yeah.
Erica's going out here without creating. I love her. And speaking of Erica, she's doing something that you transition into, which is being an artist, being a full artist in addition to writing for other people, recording your own songs. What was that transition like for you? And what are the key differences between being a songwriter, writing for others, and then really stepping out in front and working on your own material and doing your own projects?
It was difficult to come from behind the scenes to be the front man. I was not young. I was in my early 30s. But it was just something that I always wanted to do. It was something that Whitney had really encouraged me to do when we were in the studio. She could feel that desire in me, and I had the desire, but she kind of like gave me that inspirational pep talk that was like, okay, it's time. I wanted to make a project that I was involved with from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
As a songwriter, it was always like, you pitching songs, you hope that you get to be a part of a project. Your song may fit the tone of something or may feel disjointed from the rest of the project. I wanted to take the relationships I had made, with other writers, producers, art directors, stylists. I wanted to like pull all the pieces of relationships that I knew and make something that made a statement from beginning to end. It didn't even have to have been me, but I wanted to be a part of an expression of something that was a project from beginning to end. And I felt like I wanted to, the songs that I, was pitching to other people, they were looking for, usually a certain kind of commerciality. I wanted to sing music or write music that didn't have to have that onus on it, I wanted to work with musicians that I knew, live musicians and go into the studio and just record them because I thought they were just amazing and geniuses. It just was a chance for me to step out on faith and do something for myself, not by myself, because
Right.
it was actually became very much a team efforts, but just a chance to just express myself and so to just put myself out there. Then once the records were done, I had to kind of learn how to navigate and network with, booking agents and marketing people and managers or manager people who could act managerially on my behalf, and getting on shows and getting in front of people and learning how to sort of network and sell. This is in the physical days, sell CDs,
Yeah.
at all kinds of events, from bookstores to house parties, listening parties, just getting in front of people to say, hey, I am here targeting your audience. This is my music. I want to present it to you and have you buy into it. So it was a big, huge learning curve, you know, but it gave me a chance to connect more directly with music lovers and music consumers, I would say.
And do you have any regrets? Any regrets, man?
No,
I'm with
no,
you
not
there.
at all.
Regrets have no
Um,
place.
I think that, the records I've made, um, those songs, those who've heard those songs, and it's a much more boutique audience than my songwriting audience.
Mhm.
But those who've heard those particular songs, um, however they've discovered them, they've meant something very deep to them, um, and and I'll hear, like there's some friends of mine, I'm not as close with them, but I do know them, that got married recently, and I was told that one of my songs on my first solo album was played at their wedding. That's
Mhm.
when you fall in love, and I was like, wow. That was on their wedding playlist of what the DJ played during the evening. So that just meant a lot to me. I wasn't in competition with myself as a songwriter when I started releasing my independent music. Did I want to do well? Of course. You know what I mean? Of course I wanted to do well. Of course I wanted, the music to grant me the opportunities, as many opportunities as I would desire. Yes. Was it disappointing when, as an independent, I realized that how difficult that would be and how competitive that would be? Absolutely. Was it sometimes disheartening? Yes. But still, for every opportunity that I did get to perform or to share or to interface with, people who wanted to just hear me sing and just say, listen, brother, like, you may be a songwriter and we may have enjoyed your songs, but you can also sing, and your singing voice really touches me. Or people who didn't know, because there was a lot of a new audiences of people who really just heard about Gordon Chambers and did not know anything about me, but my voice touched them, and they discovered me and then found out about the resume. It was just another chance to express some of who I am,
Mhm.
another expression.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was and if you go back to my album credits, you'll hear my background vocals on many, many, many of the songs that I've made. So it was a chance to just come out and step out and sing the lead.
Yeah, it's dope. And share your creativity, share your gifts, and share your
Right.
humanity with people in a very, very
Yes.
different way. I asked those questions, man, because I was really curious to hear what it was like from where you were sitting. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
obviously familiar with your body of work, and even more familiar after preparing for this conversation. And I know, like for instance, you and Eric Roberson did a great joint together, and he's another amazing songwriter and an artist who worked in the independent realm and has done really
Hmm.
well for himself over the years.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's important to hear from people like you guys who have had these wonderful, successful, long-term careers, because people quite often think about, being the Beyonce in the moment, being somebody who's fortunate enough. It's almost like a lottery, right? The fortunate enough to have all the stars align, the talent, the opportunities, all the things come together, and they're this superstar. Where that happens once in every, 5, 6,000, 8,000 people. But people could carve out a really wonderful life and career for themselves doing the things that they were gifted to do.
Right.
If you just believe in yourself and you take a chance on
Yes.
yourself the
Hmm.
way you
Eric
have.
is absolutely. Eric is first of all, Eric is a very generous soul. He really gives of himself. Has really extended himself. Is very available to many, many, many artists. It's been always very available to me, When I've called on him for any kind of advice, he has picked the phone right up and very supportive. He's truly kind. He's just truly a beautiful human being.
Yeah.
So have nothing but love for him. And I mean, I think that Erica is a great example of like just wanting to just do what he did, do what he does his own way, his own sound, having confidence in the way he expresses his sound and wanting to be about that sound. And then over time, people have come to him. I think that's, as an independent artist, you just kind of like take a chance and you don't have a record company telling you, okay, we need you to make this like this or target this radio. Like you kind of just take a chance on expressing yourself, being yourself. And sometimes organically people just find your sound. They find you, they discover you.
It's amazing. Man, I'm not gonna keep you all day and all night, but it's just a great conversation. I know that there are creatives out there that are being fed by this, right? That are learning a lot about who they are and their craft and thinking about and taking notes on what's the best thing for them in this time that they live in. Going back to our theme though for love and Blackness, I just want to take it here. When it comes to Blackness, how do you think about your Blackness, and how has your Blackness been a part of what you've done in your career as a creative?
That's a beautiful question. As we close out Black Music Month, I mean, I don't know that I think about being Black all the time like that. I don't know that I'm always thinking about myself as a Black person, but I do know that I am Black, and I do know that I love being Black. I do know that I love Black creativity. I love Black brilliance. There's so much of it. I'm very inspired by it. I've been honored to meet some of the most brilliant Black people and dine and sit with some of the most brilliant Black people of our time. Not just in music, but, Toni Morrison and Al Sharpton and Cornel West. I've spent time with some of the most brilliant minds of our time. I'm very honored. I believe in this is one thing I love being an artist and being a creative. It gives me a chance to do my part for Black self-esteem.
Yes.
It gives me a chance to express myself, in honor of those who I love and have been inspired by, from Stevie Wonder to Abbey Lincoln to, Motown to Bob Marley, all those artists I heard, as a child or as a teenager, and be inspired by them and go out there and put out, the things that I do and, and salute them. And then, share it very proudly, as myself, proud in my pride of my culture, and really uplift, other people, even my home, where I live. I'll never forget, there was this brother who was training me, a physical fitness trainer. And we were doing some exercising in the Fort Greene Park, and then it started to pour raining. And then I said, listen, it was unexpected. I said, if you want, I live right around the corner. We can just finish the workout outside at my house. He said, we can finish it. And he said, okay, no problem. So he came over to the house. We finished the workout at home. And when he came in, he just looked around. He said, wait a minute, bro, we're going to start, but just give me a minute. He just started looking around the artwork, and he just looked around slowly at everything. And he just started just looking at it. And he just said, I'm just taking this in for a minute. And I said, well, okay. And he just said, and he was really moved. He said, I said, what's going on with you? Like, he said, I'm just taking this in. He said, you know what? And he's very tall, this guy. He said, he's 6'5", actually, and he's very dark skinned. He said, I spend so much of my time trying to just disappear. because I live with a notion that my size, me being who I am, is going to threaten or intimidate people. So I'm always trying to shrink or just hide or disappear. And he said, and I come in here and I see all this home, and he said, I see all this blackness, on the walls, and he said, just coming into your home, you invited me to your home, and just walking in the way you just walked in, full of your pride of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I have to tell you, I can't explain to you what you're doing for me right now by just, I was like, I was so moved. And I've never heard anybody say anything like that about coming to my house. And he said, this is just going to make me walk taller from now on in the rest of my life. And I was so amazed by not just what he was feeling, but that he actually took the time to express what he was feeling. And so I am proud that my creativity has been able to, afford me to buy a home like this and to decorate it and adorn it with creativity. That people can feel that, and that people, can come in, people of all walks of life, but especially when Black people come here and they feel that sense of pride, that I love for them to come in and feel taller and feel proud of who they are just by what they see. I love that.
That's what it's about, brother.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we got to that story, because that's what it's about. That's why I do the podcast. That's why I celebrate people like you who have lived their lives authentically, who are making their contributions to this world and to our society, and showing people the power of and the majesty and the joy and the creativity that is Blackness. And everybody benefits from Blackness, not just Black folks. Everybody benefits.
Everybody. Yeah.
And I'd like to see anti-Blackness in for that reason, because the minute I think the world starts to understand and embrace each other's humanity as well as our own humanity, we're going to go a long way towards making this a much better place for us all to live. Before we go, I'm going to rapid fire say some names, and I just want you to throw out the first adjective that comes to mind when I say these folks' names. All right? You ready?
Yep.
Anita Baker.
Sultry.
Stevie Wonder.
Spiritual.
Angie Stone.
Soulful.
Toni Morrison.
Oof. Piercing.
Alice Walker.
Honest.
Your parents.
Legacy.
Love it. There's a young creative listening, or a seasoned creative listening, who wants to go out and take a chance on themselves and dive into the career. What is the one piece of advice that you, looking back on what's happened for you, what would you share with them?
I would say, be yourself. Just your vulnerability is your superpower. Hone your craft. Study people who inspire you. Always be a student. Always collaborate with people who are better than you in some area. You know what I mean? Work with them and let them challenge you, to bring out the best in you. Learn about networking and how to, market yourself and build a movement, because it takes a village. And I would say have something that you praise that is beyond your own ego.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that is wise counsel, and that was more than one, and we're going to take all of them. I'm sure our listeners are appreciative. And, I haven't had a chance to do this publicly, but before we go, I want to say this, Gordon. Years ago, when I was new in New York and I was still working in marketing, I worked up at Harlem, USA, the complex where the Magic Johnson Theaters is. And we did this great event for kids I created called the Celebrity Readathon.
Mm.
We would have celebrities come and read stories to the kids and then relate
Mm-hmm.
to each of the young elementary school kids why reading was important to making their dreams come true. And as you can imagine, it's quite often difficult to get people to show up in the middle of their day to do these kinds of things. But there were these folks that I reached out to, AJ and Free, the folks from Coffee Brown, Emil Wilbeck, and all these people I didn't know personally at the time, but I reached out to, and they said, absolutely. And one of those people was this guy named, he's a songwriter. What's his name? Gordon Chambers.
Mm.
Didn't know me from Adam. Reached out, and he said, absolutely, what time and where? And I just wanted to publicly show people that that's the kind of person you've been the entire time I've known you in your career, that you're always giving back. And I think that's an important thing to add to that list you just shared with people. Be willing to share your gifts with others and in an effort to serve others, because it always comes back to you, whether it comes back to you personally or it comes back to you in building a bigger, better, and more loving society. It comes back to you. And I just want to thank you publicly for that and let you know that I've run into some of those kids on the street over the years.
Oh, wow.
Adults and they remember. They're like, Mr. Ricky, I remember you from the reading thing when I was in 6th grade. So
Wow.
that is part of the legacy you leave, brother.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you very, very much. That was a beautiful way to end this conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely.
To God be the glory. Thank you.
To God be the glory indeed. What is next for you, and where can people connect with you online, brother?
Social media is Gordon Chambers. That's my Instagram. GORDON Chambers. That's the website. That's the Facebook. The booking number is 212-696-6774. That's for concert bookings. That's for even vocal lessons, vocal coaching lessons, which I give. That's where people can reach me. The email is info@gordonchambers.com, as is the website. And that's where people can reach me.
Y'all heard all that. Y'all can find him wherever you need him. And you music supervisors, he's still writing, and he's still got a good catalog. So reach out. I mean, there's films, there's TV. It's a black renaissance in terms of film and TV right now. So
absolutely. Yep. There certainly is.
Up in those projects. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I am sure people are blessed by this conversation, and I know
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Gordon Chambers.
Blessings. Take care. Good night.
Peace and blessings.